aren't you?
Me?
It's
Yeah.
not me.
Nope, nope, not me.
Who you think it's gonna be? It ain't me. It's you.
What, 9 days now, huh? What are we
I know.
on?
Listen, you're not even 50 yet, you little thing.
All
Just
right,
gonna
we
be-
are live.
Oh, hey.
We're talking about Coach Joanne's birthday coming up. So
It is. She's so young. Look
I'm
at her.
so young. That's
she's
right.
she's the youngin of the group.
She is.
Do you care to tell us how old you'll be, Coach?
I'll be 48. I don't mind at all.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Well, we'll be sure to wish you a happy birthday on
Thank
the day.
you.
That's right.
Okay. So, welcome to the Inner Strength Empowerment Hour. This is number 36. I am Lori DePietro stand-in. These are my amazing success coaches, Joanne and LT. So I thank them for being here with me once again. And I thank everyone who is joining us on Facebook, either live or with the replay. So today we are talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that is, something that some of you may be aware of. And what I would like to do is let me see, I didn't prepare this ahead of time, but I want to see if I can share my screen and see if I can share this with anyone who hasn't seen it. So we'll see if I'm able to get that on here. Sorry about that, you guys. I just realized that some of you may not be aware of this. And it's not showing up. Do either one of you guys have it?
I have it. I don't know how to share my screen.
I do not.
It was in this group. And so, there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
There it is.
Right. Okay. So now you guys can see it. So it starts with your physiological needs. It moves up to safety and security, love and belongingness needs, self-esteem needs, and self-actualization. And this was created by Abraham Maslow in 1943 as a model for developmental psychology. And even though this is something that he specifically created, this is either this model or very similar models are used even now in developmental psychology. So this is why we're going over this. It's really important. And it's a different way to look at it, as from what we might think when we initially look at something like this. So I know that for me, I used to look at this like, okay, physiological needs. So if someone doesn't have enough food or water or shelter or clothing or sleep, like if they're being deprived in any of these areas, and I would think of people who were, like in undeveloped countries that aren't getting, the food that they need and who are starving, things like that. Obviously, those people aren't going to be able to, move up this hierarchy to a point where they feel confident and have respect for others and have connections because they're just trying to survive, right? So that's kind of the way that I used to think of it in the past. And now I really see it differently. So what I wanted to start off with in this talk is really talking about why we should view this differently here in the United States and why the physiological needs, like why our needs aren't being met. So the standard American diet is toxic in the United States. So we are, out of all the developed countries, we have the highest rates of obesity, cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and also things like hysterectomies, depression. All of these things are out of control. Things that you would think that if we have more resources, we would have less of these things, but it's just the opposite. So, when we think about this thing here at the bottom with the physiological needs, we aren't getting what we need. And the reason for that is the standard American diet. So the standard American diet is basically, they call it that because it's basically what almost everyone in the United States eats. It's how we eat. So it's about 70% processed foods, about 25% meat and dairy, like animal products, eggs, things like that, and about 5 or 6% fruit and vegetables. And it is what is causing all of our skyrocketing obesity and disease rates, not to mention depression. And here's why. So Tally's on. Hi, Tally. Hi, Kayla. And hi, Tammy. So we have a lot of people watching today, and we definitely appreciate you piping in. So what happens with your gut when you're eating this way is it becomes very acidic, right? And we've all seen those commercials with, you know, Larry the Cable Guy and all these things talking about Prilosec, right? Like, and he's like, I can go to a fair and eat this big turkey leg, and all I got to do is take me some Prilosec, right? So, and what it makes it seem like is that you just take some pills and all the problems go away, right? You had the problem, which is you felt like crap after you ate this, and now you don't. But that's not true. So what happens, that just is sort of a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It shuts off your proton pump, okay, which is what is pumping acid into your system. But what you don't realize is you need that acid to digest your food. Mm-hmm. So it's completely messing up your whole digestive system. And if you look at something like Prilosec, right on the box, it says you cannot take this for more than 4 months. But yet people take it for years. I took it for 8 years. It destroys your body's ability to process nutrition. So this is the kind of stuff that we do in the United States. So you have all of this acidity, right? And what happens is your gut becomes inflamed because on the, you know, our pH is supposed to be a little bit on the alkaline side, but almost everything we're eating is acidic. Dairy, meat, all of these processed foods, sugar, coffee, energy drinks, all the stuff that we love, right? That's all on the acidic side. The acid alkaline scale runs about 1 to 14, or runs from 1 to 14. And those things, all the things I just mentioned to you, are between 3 and a 5 on the acid side. So very, very acidic. But your body wants to be around 7.5 for optimum health. So you can see what the problem is here. So we start to get inflamed, and our where we process our nutrition and our, you know, where the vitamins and also the toxins is a solid wall. When it becomes inflamed, it begins to permeate. So those toxins start to leak out into your system, and they cause a host of issues. You start to get things like chronic fatigue, joint inflammation. You can even develop over the long term autoimmune diseases. You know, you start to see other things like acne, eczema. You know, your hormones are disrupted because that is where your gut is actually where your hormones are metabolized. Hi, Cora. Hi, Gina. Your gut metabolizes your hormones, so your hormones start to go crazy. That is where most of your serotonin is produced. So you start to feel like you're on the crazy train mentally, and your body is not able to process the nutrition. If you are taking in any nutrition, right? Because then we'll be like, oh, I feel like crap. I really got to get this together. And you feel like I'm going to be good for a couple of weeks. Even those things that you're taking in during that time, if you are eating well, your body's not able to process them correctly. And so you're not seeing that on the scale and in your life because your gut is inflamed. So this keeps us in yo-yo dieting is basically that loop that you're in, because you feel like you're doing well for a little while. You either do something sustainable and lose some weight and gain it back, or you do something like maybe you're doing something really good, but still you're not seeing any progress, so you just give up. So that keeps us at this bottom part with the physiological needs, and we can't get out. So we feel out of control. We feel like we're on the crazy train. We feel sick. We're not getting the nutrition we need. So really, we're not any different than someone who is food insecure, because our food is not nutritious. Something like McDonald's, for instance, they can't even call their stuff food. It's a food product. Legally, they can't call it food, because it's everything that they are offering you has the nutrients stripped out of it, and then it has to be fortified. They have to put vitamins back in it just to call it edible.
Mhm.
Okay, that started at the turn of the 19th to 20th century when we started stripping the, refining process. We started stripping nutrients out of everything to make it easier to process. Well, then around, I think, 1908, a group of people said, how is this even food? And so they had to start putting vitamins back into things just to even call it food. So this is where we're at still after all of this time. So we have and we can spend a whole session just on that. But I wanted you guys to understand why this is where we're starting. So when women come to me and come to us as success coaches, they really believe that the problem is right up here in the green and purple. They're like, I just need to get some confidence. I need to really become the best version of myself. And so this is where I want to start right here. But the truth is they're starting down here. And if they're not, if anyone is not willing to go up the hierarchy, if you're not willing to master each of these, you're not going to get what you want in terms of your health and weight loss, because you haven't, this is a ladder and you don't get to just jump to the top.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let me know if that resonates with you in the comments, because it's really important that you guys realize this. And we can come back to this. I want to jump on, as we move up the hierarchy in our conversation, and I'll jump back on here and we'll talk about this. So for you guys, Joanne and LT, when you first started, where did you think you were in that hierarchy? And what were you experiencing physically that now, when you look back on it, makes you realize you were in that red zone at the bottom?
Well, I think I thought I was in the esteem and feeling of accomplishment because I had worked so hard to kind of escape everything how I was brought up. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do it right. And I felt like I was there, but it was so exhausting because I wasn't really there. I was just kind of thinking I was there, but not doing it the right way. So it became very exhausting. And I think that's why I felt so beat down. And it wasn't, I think that's why I crashed and burned a couple of years ago, because you can't keep up that level of trying when you don't have like you said, the steps on the ladder. I was just trying to jump to the top, and it crashed and burned.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So that top part is self-actualization, which is, that's where you're finding your purpose, where you're becoming the best version of yourself. And you're really, vibrating on that level of gratitude and feeling amazing. And you can't just jump from the bottom to the top.
And that's very frustrating because we all have that vision. We all know that top rung is up there and we all want it. But so even just, even in my personal life before I joined the group, so many of my friends would say, I don't know what my purpose is. I can't figure it out. I do this, I do that. Nothing is making me happy. And when you don't come to it from a way of being authentic and have gratitude and let it just kind of naturally unfold, it's never going to fit. It's never going to feel like you're actually there at all.
And the way that plays out in our group, which I've talked about before, is that I start off by asking women, okay, tell me about yourself. Who are you? And they'll start telling me, well, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a volunteer at my church, I'm a this with my job. I'm like, no, that's not what I asked you. Who are you? And they cannot answer me.
No.
So if you can't answer that question, you are not going to get to the top of that. You're never going to figure out what your purpose is. You're never going to figure out, what the best version is of yourself if you can't answer that question. What about you, LT?
Well, 2020 hindsight, looking at this now, I would say that I was a good right in the middle. I thought I was in the middle because I've seen the top before. and I hung on to the top with my little hands like this. And then I lost my grip and went down to the middle. But really, I was at the bottom. I was at the bottom. And now I know I was at the bottom because I had not addressed my food addiction problems.
Mhm.
So once I started addressing that, then I started climbing up the ladder. But see, I had done so many programs and had tried so many things. That's why I felt like that I had this knowledge about where I was going and what I wanted to be. I just couldn't hang on to it. So I
Mhm.
started at the bottom and built my way up.
Right. And that's the thing about food addiction is it's sort of it's a dirty word. Like we don't, or a dirty phrase. We don't want to admit that.
We
And
sure don't. Who wants to? Nobody.
nobody wants to say addiction to anything,
No.
like they don't want to admit that no matter what the problem is, and
No.
whether it's food or it's wine. The wine culture among women is out of control, kind of. And so
Yeah.
so but
Yeah.
we don't want to say that
Yes,
because it admits a level of weakness for
it
us.
does.
But the thing is, the standard American diet is addictive.
It
We've
is.
talked about that before. It's, the bliss point, which is the exact amount of salt, sugar, and fat that's in a processed food that makes it addictive. They do studies on this to make sure they can addict you to this stuff. It's completely legal. There's a great book on this, Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. He's a prize-winning journalist, so I suggest you pick that up. And then you have things like dairy, and that is highly addictive because of the casomorphins. They have
Mhm.
shown that for some people, dairy can be as addictive as the heroin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you
And I believe it. And when you're in the grocery store, just take note next time you're in the grocery store and you're walking by that little cookie aisle and the ice cream aisle, and just watch how many people are putting stuff in their basket. It just blew me away once I started becoming really aware of what I was putting in my basket and watching. And I started watching other people and I thought, oh my gosh. And then the number of people that give their kids stuff at the checkout line, it really, it never ceases to amaze me. It just blows me away that we are doing this to ourselves and our children.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, and we've all been there. That's the thing
Yeah.
is, like, I used to take my kids to McDonald's all the time when they were
You
little.
better believe it. I was right there with them.
Mhm.
I know
Right.
it. Yes.
So this isn't, we say this to any ladies watching this, not in judgment, but to give you the information that we now know, which
Yes.
is that each generation is becoming more and more unhealthy. The generation that's coming up now is the only generation in history whose life expectancy is less than its parents.
Yeah.
We are killing our children with lack of nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why we're starting at the bottom. This is why we're all in the red zone. And I even saw this when I worked in the inner city, because these kids had lots of access. They're in a food desert. They have a lot of access to the corner store, to the McDonald's. And these are the kinds of things that they were eating. If you even look at something like, WIC and food stamps, this stuff promotes government subsidized foods, which is meat, dairy, and processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get to get all the produce that they want. It makes it cheaper for them to get the government subsidized crap. And so I would see these kids with all kinds of learning disabilities because their brains aren't getting enough the nutrition to develop correctly. And tons of ADD, which is directly related to nutrition. So there's just so many things that we don't think about. We think, well, we have plenty of food, so we're okay. That, we can just skip that bottom rung. That's not us. But that's not true.
No.
So going back, let me get back to this. So you go from this part, the physiological needs, up to the safety and security needs, which is health, employment, property, family stability. Okay. So again, most of us would think, unless I'm dying or I'm homeless, right? If I don't have a job, there's things here, because what happens is if you cannot, like if you are homeless, for instance, you're not going to get up here to the morality, creativity, you know, all of these things
Right.
if you're just trying to survive, right? So
Mhm.
again, we think to ourselves, well, if you're not homeless and you're not dying, and you have a job, then you can just skip this part. But the truth is that if you're not meeting your physiological needs, if you're not getting good nutrition, you're not going to have the health. And for those of us, like you were just talking about, LT, I know for me, the thing that caused was that food addiction caused me to not trust myself.
Yes.
And you don't feel safe when you don't trust yourself.
Mm-mm.
You don't feel
Nope.
stable. Everything that happens is just throwing you this way and that way. You are at
Yes.
the mercy of all of your circumstances. And I really just felt all the time I was having heart palpitations. I was so
Anxiety.
anxious all the
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing we don't realize is when we are not having that basis of good nutrition from a physiological standpoint because of your serotonin being produced and all that stuff, you have to have that to feel you know, mentally okay. But also just the fact that you're in that trap of yo-yo dieting and not being able to trust yourself, like, oh, I'm going to be good today, and then you're not. I'm not going to eat
Right.
that, but then you do. I'm not going to drink that, but then you do.
And the
Right.
bargaining. Oh gosh, the
Oh,
bargaining. Mm.
yeah.
The promises, the nightly promises, and then the wake up and then the disappointment because you've already blown it by noon. Oh, that went on for me forever and ever. Yeah.
And yeah, and so a lot of the women that I talked to were like, I just can't try again. I've just done this too many
Mhm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
And then are you feeling stable?
No.
No, and you're clearly not healthy.
No.
Right. And so on top of everything else, then you've got also medications that have their side effects. Like I said, you know, maybe I've talked to many people who are on Prilosec like I was. It
Mhm.
destroys your body's ability to make B12. And so that it causes its own problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're on things like cholesterol medication, which causes side effects. You're on blood pressure medication, which causes you to be. Tell us about that, Joanne, because I know you were on blood pressure medication for a long
Yeah.
time. What was
I was
that?
I was on a beta blocker for 12 years, and I originally got put on it because of migraines. I was having severe migraines probably 3 to 4 days per week, like debilitating on the couch, throwing up, not able to even get up for hours and hours, 3 to 4 days a week. So the doctor said, and I had always ignored the fact of, you know, there were migraine medications because I had known people who were on them who had had strokes. So it scared me. So my doctor said, well, this isn't technically a migraine medication, but it is promising for migraines. But what it was a beta blocker. And so that had a whole host of side effects that were, I can't say they were worse than the migraines, but they led to so many other things because they depleted my energy. I was so sluggish. Every time I stood up, I would get that whoosh of like my blood pressure trying to equalize. Even when I exercised, my chest would hurt because when you can't get your heart rate to a certain level that it wants to get to because the drugs are keeping you low, it actually feels like chest pain because your heart's trying and it's like, no, we're not going to go there. So I had all these just icky feelings being on this, but I thought that was my only option. You know, I thought that was it. So I did, and it was terrible.
And isn't it crazy what you're talking about? Because I think a lot of other, you know, women can relate to this, is that even though you were having these migraines all the time, even though you were on these meds, even though you were, you know, very overweight, all these things, you actually thought that here's what you needed to master was this top level. This is all.
Oh yeah.
It's
Because I
crazy.
thought it was, I think honestly what we think, because maybe media or, you know, advertising or whatever, it makes us think that we have like a character flaw if we can't get there. They're not talking about the science behind it. They're not talking about these rungs on the ladder and go back and fix what you need to fix. They're talking about, you know, here's what all the pretty people have, and here's what your life should look like. You should have this furniture and this outfit and this. You can't get there when you can't get off the couch. You're never going to. You might for
But
5 minutes, but like LT said, you're going to fall right back down.
But you're totally right, because it's the quick fix culture.
Quick fix, but you
Mhm.
can't stay there. You honestly cannot stay there.
Right. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. If you don't go through these steps, even if you have moments where you're up here, you can't stay there
Mm-mm.
No.
because you haven't done the work.
Mm-mm. And it doesn't feel right. It doesn't, you, like I said before, like I was always trying to figure out where I fit in because I knew I wanted to have a career or, you know, meaning to my life. And I was just trying to plug myself in all these other places that existed. I didn't come to that naturally. And so that's why
Right.
it never felt good. That's why I was always unhappy.
That's
And-
exactly what I did. And then you do the comparison trap because you look
Yeah.
at people that do seemingly have it all, and then you propel yourself into more inaction.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're never going to measure up. And so then you sit on the couch, and not only are you inactive, but now you're beating yourself up and you're ruminating about how you can't get it done. I'll speak
Because
for
you
myself.
think
That's what I
yeah,
do.
you think it's a character flaw.
That's
when it's
right.
not a character flaw,
That's
it's
right.
there's actual science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot have safety when you feel that way, because I know we've talked about it before. You know, you said, Christy said, was that last week that we had Christy?
Last week. Yeah.
And ULT, that like you feel like you're looking at your husband going, why does he even want me?
Oh, I didn't
I'm
match.
no good for him. And so we're worried now. Like because I
Mhm.
remember feeling that way because my husband was a jackass and actually said I am interested in having sex with you. So like I didn't have to guess. So it's like you're wondering, like, well, is he looking at somebody else? Is he?
Well, listen, I never thought about it from that standpoint of my husband. I thought about it from other women's standpoint about what in the world is he doing with her? That's what I thought of it from. It was
Mhm.
always coming from that angle. My gosh, he could do better. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Right. Which made you think your husband could do better too, right? When you were in
Oh, I
that
definitely
state.
did. And I
Yeah.
thought he would be better off without me, and that I was dragging him down, and I felt sorry for him, and we didn't match, and all of that kind of thing. You know, I definitely felt, and I'm not going to say I felt that for 30 years, but during my down times, because like I said, I was mayor of Yo-Yoville over here. So when I was down, that's exactly what my rumination went right back to that.
Mhm.
And
Always, always.
So I've had women say that their weight made them feel not confident at work because they didn't want to speak up and draw attention to themselves.
That's
So
right.
that's all of this insecurity. And so safety and security needs are right out the window
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have your physiological needs met.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go back real quick because Pamela says she agrees. She says, I work in an elementary school and the increase of students with ADHD is astounding.
I'm
Mhm.
sure.
And it's alarming to
Yes.
think that, you know, when I see some of the things with this generation coming up, I'm a little worried, I have to be honest,
Mhm.
about their level of lethargy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because they have a hard time caring about stuff. And it's, I'm sure that this is part of it.
Mhm.
It's, you know, because when you, like you said, Joanne, when you feel, you know, it's like I put up this video where you guys, you'll go to my personal page because my page is public. It's a funny video, but it's this new age mom who finds out that her daughter, who's like a preteen or whatever, just had McDonald's for the first time, and she freaks out because she had sent an organic lunch for her daughter, and her daughter's, you know, whoever was hanging out with her, the mom did not give it to her, and so she's like, she looks at her daughter and she's like, "You can't think clearly right now. You're like sedated."
Yep.
But that is what it's like when you are
Right.
in this sort of food coma all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So from, you know, once you get your physiological needs met, and once you had that health and stability, what did that feel like? How was that different?
For me, it was pretty scary because it meant facing all the stuff I hadn't dealt with in the past. because I just was not even capable, because I had so much brain fog and so much fatigue that I was in survival mode. So I couldn't address any of the other crap. And, you know, I've said it on here before. I grew up in a house with domestic violence. I had alcoholic and drug addicted father and stepfather. I moved out of my house when I was 16 years old because it was so violent. And for me, that, you know, I had aunts and uncles who were like, over the years, even into my 20s and 30s, well, maybe you should get some therapy. We know what you've been through. You should. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And it was almost like a driving force for me to be more fine than they were, because I thought, no, I'm going to make it to the top and forget about all that other stuff. And over time, it became very easy to forget about that crap because I was in such a brain fog and I felt so physically terrible that was just way on the back burner. So once I got the brain fog gone, all of that stuff started coming up, and I was like, wow, that actually did happen. Like, that actually probably needs to be addressed. And I didn't want to address it. And because I just, you know, you don't want to go back and address that stuff. And I know in the group, we talk about, you know, LT always says, ever forward, ever forward. The thing about it is, once your brain is clear, and once you can actually think about things from safety and from having all your nutrition, you may not even need all those years of therapy that you thought other people were having and all that. Because the way I've been able to move forward now, it's like my physiological part is fixed. And now I can just address these things as fact and move forward with them. So in the beginning, it was very scary. But when I started to move through them, I found the importance of addressing them, even if it just meant saying it out loud. Yeah, that was trauma. And I address it for what it is. Just saying it out loud just helps you move forward and see where you want to go, instead of trying to fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Mhm.
I think just, you know, getting that safety right and getting the nutrition right, it allows you to address these other things and a lot quicker than you think. You know, it's not, you don't have to dwell there for the rest of your life. It's
Right.
way quicker when your mind is right.
Right. I think when you're not in, like you said, you're not in survival mode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It just makes things so much easier to deal with when you are
Mhm.
coming from a place where you feel more stable.
Mm-hmm.
And but like you said, what's really interesting is for all of us, this is a process, I feel like, as you're moving up this ladder, of peeling back the onion.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be tough, you know, those
Mhm.
those as you get more to the core, it's raw, right? And we don't always want to address those things, but what's interesting to me is that people can actually convince themselves that they don't even have any trauma. And it's
yeah.
because we make layers around ourselves with this food.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so that's, you know, as we start to get that coping mechanism out of our life,
Mhm.
then you actually do have to start dealing with the stuff you're trying to cope with.
Mhm.
But like you said, it doesn't mean you have to go into, you know, 10 years of therapy to deal with it. It's
Right.
just, but you do have to, once you're there, it allows you to recognize it, because unless you do, you can't move forward.
Mhm. And it's a
Mhm.
spectrum. I think, you know, a lot of times these days we call everything a spectrum. So I feel like this process is a spectrum, because not only are you dealing with all that, you know, garbage from your past, but once you peel away all that stuff and you start to really become who you are and know who you are, and you see the other side of it, that drives you so much to be aligned with who you really are, that it's almost like it's a driving force when you
It
couldn't even
really-
see that before. You couldn't see your authentic self from where you were in survival mode. And now that you get a little taste of that, it's like, you know, like we say in the group, we're unstoppable, because
Yeah.
you really, once you get to that halfway point on that spectrum, you're not going back, because there's
Right.
nothing that's going to drag you backwards.
That really is the point, though, is that most people, they think they can skip these when in fact they haven't even mastered these.
Mm-mm.
Mhm.
They didn't even recognize them yet, because I know I
Yeah.
didn't.
And I definitely want to talk about love and belongingness up here, because that's a huge, that is the turning point, getting up here. But did you have anything that you wanted to say, LT, about once you got to the point where you felt safe and secure and stable?
Yeah, I would say that I have done a lot of therapy in my life. And I started addressing issues in my late 20s, and I'm 51. So I felt like that I had a head knowledge of a lot of this. And so that's why I felt that this was not foreign to me when I did that. But when I had to address this food addiction, and that's where Joanne and I are very similar in our stories, but where mine is a little bit different is when I was excited when I got rid of that food addiction and started having power and control. And I felt like a big chunk of my brain that used to fixate and ruminate was finally, the monkey was off my back. And then I thought, gosh, I've already done, looking at those, I'd already done so many work in those areas that I just went right for it because I just finally got the monkey off, and I addressed it. And I was very open about it because I'm very, very open, as you know, about telling all the things that I went through, and, hit it for years. And so now it's open, and that's been therapeutic for me to do things like this show and to be in the group. And I would say that the group has played a huge part in it because of the motivation and the support that I felt. And I felt that I was part of the greater good. So
Right.
that's what what propelled me.
That's a good point, is that it, for some of us, it is a process of going back to realize we had trauma.
That's right.
For others of us, and I'm with you on this one, LT, is I had years of therapy, and I had always been working on myself and just not really making much progress.
That's it.
But for me, then it was like it clicked.
It clicked.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had trauma for I knew I was being traumatized as a kid. I was like, yeah, I'm being damaged right now.
Right.
So that wasn't news to me. It was
right.
But it still wasn't clicking. And then once I got my physiological needs met, once I became healthy and I felt more, I got off the crazy train, right? So I'm like more mentally stable, then it started to all open up. So that
it did. And what I've said many times before is I was stunned how quickly things fell into place for me. Yeah. Things that I had tried for years. And I'm talking about weeks, just a few weeks. I was like, what in the world? Where have you been? I mean, that's how I felt. That's how I felt.
You said the people around you looked at you differently as well. They're like, whoa, you are showing up as a different person.
Mm-hmm. And they're saying you're not only showing up as a different person, but everything about you is better.
Yeah.
And then they would click them off and I'd be like, you're right. I feel it.
That's right. So, but a big part of this that we talk about, because once you get out of survival mode, okay? So once you have your health and stability and you feel pretty secure with your safety, right? You don't feel like you're on the crazy train anymore. That is actually what allows you to really address these love and belongingness needs. So this is friendship, family, intimacy, and connections. And the big thing on here, if you read between the lines, it is boundaries. Mm-hmm. Women in general have no boundaries. Yeah. And I mean, I remember Joanne and you and I having a conversation. We were like, what is a boundary? Like, so like, I mean, from, so there's a gamut there of, where do you fall in this? But most of us don't have them. And I didn't have them. Mm-hmm. And when you don't, and you have been down here in survival mode and not been your best self, when you have been acting and thinking out of a place of insecurity and just trying to make it, you're going to attract all kinds of hot mess into your life.
Yep, you
because
are.
When and if you're not setting boundaries and you're a doormat, you're going to attract people who are like, oh, you know what? I need a doormat.
Yeah, right.
Right. Call her. She'll do it. Yeah.
That's right. Whether it is you know,
Mhm.
for any number of reasons, or you're just going
Right.
to stay trapped in a tribe of people, whether it's your family, your friends, or whatever, who
Yes.
are not respecting you. So
Mhm.
you cannot, if you are in a tribe of people that are not respecting you, which I was enmeshed, okay, with my family. That's a clinical term where we all had to think the same. So if they thought I was a piece of shit, I had to think I was a piece of shit, right?
Right.
If
Right.
you are in that, then you don't have intimacy and connection. You might feel like you have belonging because you're in this group,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean you have the rest of it. And you cannot get out and get above here to where you actually feel good about yourself, confidence, respect of others, connections, feeling free to be your individual self. You can't get there if
Mm-mm.
you are in this trap where you have a bunch of people in your life who do not respect you. And that could be your fault. It could be that you're just not setting the boundary.
Mhm.
And it could be their fault that they're just going to treat you like crap no matter what. And you just need to unload them. But this has been a huge thing for me in my life and my growth. If I had made it past these two and gotten to here in the love and belongingness needs and not set the boundaries, I would be right back down at the bottom.
Mhm.
You can't get anywhere without setting these boundaries. Kayla says, I need to set boundaries. We all do,
Yes.
especially women. Women are taught not to set boundaries,
Oh, yeah.
because we're always taught to think of other people first.
Mhm.
And so if somebody wants something, you just do it,
You do
or
it.
you feel guilty, and you have to do it all, and you have to do it well, and you have to look good while you're doing it. You're not
Mhm.
allowed to have any feelings about anything. And
Mhm.
nobody, of course, wants to be a bitch. You don't want anyone to call you that. So you
Right.
have to say yes to everything.
And
So
you
this
do. And then the people you're closest with get your shrapnel because it's got to come out somewhere, your frustration. And you've got to say face with other people. So it ends up being awful that the people that you love the most in your inner circle get the worst of you.
yeah,
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
absolutely so irritable with the people, my kids and stuff, just because
Yes.
you feel so overloaded all the time, so overwhelmed.
Mhm.
And so if everyone, it's your house is not behaving perfectly, you're going to blow your top.
Mhm.
Because you're not going to blow your top. Well, I guess some of us are, but you're not going to blow your top in a big public venue while everybody's looking. Look at her blow her top. You're going to blow your top at home where
Yeah.
you feel like that you can just rage. And
Right.
that's what I did. And it was so frustrating and it was so unfair.
Or
Really
you're,
unfair.
or you're going to hold it in, and you're going to be right back down here at the
That's right.
physiological needs because you're binging, and you're
That's
like,
right.
I'm just gonna bury it in crappy food. I'm gonna
Mhm.
Netflix and chill myself today.
I did that too. So yeah, it was a combination. I did that until I was ready to rant. And then I went back to that. That was why I was a flip flopper. Yeah.
Now, for me,
Mhm.
my biggest boundary that needed to be set was with my family of origin, with my
Mhm.
mother specifically, because in my family is very matriarchal. I was the black sheep of my family because even as a kid, like I said, I knew like that something's wrong here. This is not
Right.
normal. This is
Right.
not okay. No matter how many times they told me, oh, you have it so good, you don't even know.
Right.
When you're growing up like that, people are always telling you like you don't have it bad. What are you complaining about? And then you start to doubt yourself, but still some part of me was like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is messed up. I can feel
Mhm.
myself being damaged right now. So
Mhm.
even as an adult, and I tell this story periodically just because I want you guys to understand that boundaries can need to be set no matter how old you are. Um, is that my mom, when I was, about 35, we were at a big family gathering of 20 people or so. And my mom said, Lori, in front of everybody, I want you to stand up so everybody can see how fat you are.
Mhm.
This is what this, and I stood up. So I was like in this place where I was still like a kid. And I had, and the weird and horrible part of this is I hear this from women all the time. They're like, well, I would love to change my eating habits, but I can't because my mom just
Mhm.
will not let me. I mean, So I had to set a hard boundary with my mom and therefore the rest of my family, just in order to get through this love and belongingness. I had to do that. And it was really hard for me because the first time I stood up to my mom, I was, in my late 30s or early 40s, and I felt like I was going to throw up. Like I was just like, I mean, I felt like a kid.
Yeah.
And so when you start setting boundaries, it can be really scary. But you have to do that in order to get to a place where you feel good about yourself. So I was wondering what you guys have to say about your experience with setting boundaries and how that has made all the difference for you.
Well, I've gone from not knowing what a boundary was to being the boundary queen. So,
Yes, you are. That's
and
great.
I am still to this moment setting boundaries that need to be set. And it's not easy when you first do it, and you will get a lot of backlash and it will be ugly. But I can tell you that when you get to the other side of that, you are going to respect yourself so much more. Your family around you is going to respect you so much more. And it is going to literally launch you into the next level of who you are. Because, I mean, thank God for COVID, actually, because I was able to start this journey right before COVID started. And so I've been able to kind of keep my journey quiet a little bit from my family of origin because we just couldn't see each other. Well, now that we're starting to branch out a little more and see each other again, it's becoming obvious to people that I've made some changes. Hello, like I've made a lot of changes over the last 2 years.
Yep.
And they don't like it. And so now it's interesting because whereas a lot of people who are starting it in the beginning, they're getting met with this, oh, we don't like you to change. We don't want you to change. They're getting the backlash in the beginning. Well, now where I'm at, I'm getting the backlash now. And it's very interesting. And it's very interesting. Whereas before with my mother, like you, Lori, my immediate thing was just blow up. Like I used to just, when she would start, I would just blow up, end up in a pile of tears. And then on top of that, she would berate me more and say, you've always had such emotional issues. You're so emotional. Look at you. Why are you crying? Like, why are you crying?
Yes.
You're just kick me when I'm down kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Well, now I'm not crying about it anymore. I'm just saying, you may not talk to me that way. And that is where it stops. Like you may not do this. What you are saying is not true. You are saying lies. You may not talk to me that way. And I don't feel my blood pressure going up, despite the fact that I'm not on blood pressure medication. I don't feel emotional about it. I feel in control, and I feel good about being able to speak up for myself, like from a level of confidence that I thought I used to have because I could be louder or I could be stronger or I could run away from it. That's what I thought self-confidence was running away from it. Now I'm just standing here going, no, I'm still here and you're not coming in because
Right.
I like what I've created and I'm protective of what I've created.
It reminds me of Untamed, where Glennon Doyle talks about being sort of on an island
Yes.
emotionally with her and her family and being protective of who gets to come into that space.
Yeah.
And bring their toxic energy in. Like, you don't get to come in and interact.
And until you're out of it, if you're in that toxic family, and I know some people, like we're the sandwich generation, a lot of our parents live with us, or, we're in between our teenagers and our parents, and we're getting it from both sides. And until you step out of that, whether it's just in your own head or, through a group or through whatever, unless you step out of it, you don't even recognize it's happening. You don't recognize you're being so controlled by that your thoughts are not even your own thoughts. And I see that in a lot of my clients where either their mothers have had to move in with them for health reasons, or they've still live with their parents for whatever reasons, and their family is putting all that on them. You just take it and you become this doormat that you don't even recognize. So until you step out of that, and get real self-confidence, you're just going to stay there. You're never going to move ahead.
And people will say, you know, that they don't want to do that because they want to keep peace in the family.
Yeah.
That's not peace. If
That's
someone
not
is
peace.
bullying you and somebody says, well, let's just keep peace in the family,
Yeah.
all that allows anything to happen is the person to keep bullying you and
Yeah.
you not speak up, because if you cause a conflict,
Yeah.
then people will be uncomfortable. Because what they're saying is, we're perfectly comfortable with this person bullying you. We're not comfortable with you causing a conflict because of it.
Yeah.
That's not peace in the family.
No.
That is just some bullshit. That's all that is.
And it's not your responsibility to keep peace in the family. It's your responsibility to keep peace inside yourself. And if you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Leslie was saying, you know, can you give a specific example of a boundary that you've set, not just with family, but with other areas as well? And so that is something that, you know, we just talked about was, you know, boundaries that we set with our mothers. You know, I had a very similar conversation with my mom where I was just like, you can't talk to me like that anymore. So every time you talk to me like that, I'm going to remove myself from your presence. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just not going to engage with you. So like, these are the boundaries that you set with people. I've set similar boundaries, you know, too, with, you know, it allows you to set better boundaries with your spouse, you know, about your personal space, or, you know, your kids, my kids, especially. Oh my gosh, you know, it's just like, they will, you know, just run roughshod over me. And I'm just like, no, this is not okay with me, that you're behaving this way, or that you're talking to me this way, or that you're acting this way. But also things like with business, you know, so you know, it's allowed me to say, no, this isn't right for me when someone approaches me, or, you know, this is not a good fit for me, or these are the hours, you know, that I am willing to communicate with people. And I really try to take Saturdays off. I remember somebody contacting me on a Saturday and I didn't answer until Sunday. And by that time, she had messaged me like 4 times. This was not someone in our group. She had messaged me like 4 times and said, you know, why, apparently you just don't care. And I was like, it was a holiday weekend too. I was like, this is a Saturday. It is a holiday weekend. And when you contact someone, you might want to be mindful of that, because I wasn't going to be able to get back with you right away. I'm spending time with my family. So I'm kind with people whenever I can be, but I don't have a problem saying, this is what I want. This is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I expect. And I don't feel the need then, here's the key with boundaries, guys. I don't feel the need then to manage however they feel about it.
Right.
They can like it. Right. They cannot like it. If they don't follow it, then I just remove myself. They don't get to have access to me. Right. I don't argue with them about it. It's not a negotiation process. I just say, here's what it is. What about you, LT? I know that your experience, you didn't have to set these kind of boundaries with family necessarily, but
I didn't. I had to set boundaries with myself. I was in my own way most of the time. I do have a very supportive mother, you know, and I will say that I speak so highly of both of you to my mother. She thinks that both of y'all put the moon up there with your own 2 hands. So just know that one mother just thinks that you're pretty awesome. But she's always been that way with me. But I will say that her motto was keep the peace at home. And so I got some shrapnel from that growing up, because I was a product of having to be a buffer between her and my dad on keeping the peace in a lot of areas. And, you know, it affected her greatly. But I will say, concerning me personally, she's always been supportive. My husband could not be more supportive if he tried. So I was very, very fortunate and blessed, and I know it, and I'm appreciative of every second that I have of that. I have an aunt who's very, very supportive of me. Is like a second mother. So I have that going on for me, but yet I could not get out of my way. And I said yes to a lot of volunteer things, and I did things that I didn't want to do. So because I wanted to save face, or I didn't want to be talked about, or I thought that I had to do it, or I felt compelled to do it. Now I really pick and choose what I want to do. I let no be a complete sentence. And I don't allow, here's the boundary, I don't allow those guilt feelings to come in. But who else would do it? But you're the best at that. But you can do it. You've done it before. You've always done it. And I just let them worry about that. And I disengage from that conversation much, much quicker, because before I could have been talked into anything and then been mad the whole time. So I've really learned that life is too short to be mad and to say stewed up about things that you don't want to do. So I'm now driving the bus in that area. And you do get respected when you do that, because I can see that my kids really, they're 18 and 22. They really used to just, needle till they got their way. And now I'm so firm and resolute when I say something, they don't even come back to me because they know that I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I love seeing that. That's kind of funny to me to watch, but I enjoy that.
So, and I know you had I want to just insert something quickly in here about forgiveness, because everyone, I feel like our society is a little bit toxic with the whole forgiveness thing.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be, not only do you have to forgive, but you have to be warm and fuzzy about it, or it doesn't count. So you have to forgive, and you have to make it count
and we have to pat them on the back and say it's okay, and if you do it again, it'll be fine too. No.
Yeah, it just isn't. That's
no.
The definition of forgiveness, if you look it up, is a cancellation of debt.
Right.
That's it. That's what it is. So you can acknowledge that something happened, and that this person, for whatever reason, did what they did. They don't owe you anything anymore. That's you're not going to try to get them to apologize or make amends or whatever. You can acknowledge that, and that is forgiveness. It doesn't mean you have to like them, appreciate what they did, understand what they did, want to be around them ever again.
That's right.
You get to decide how you forgive.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let other people tell you what your forgiveness looks like.
That's right.
So, when you forgive, they because it's so ridiculous. They'll be like, you need to forgive for you. You need to forgive for your peace of mind. But yet when you forgive for you and your peace of mind, then people are like, yeah, but then you got to still be around them, and really, or it's not forgiveness. No.
And that's one thing that you helped me see that on one particular incident, because somebody wanted the forgiveness from me. And, I'd never even thought about it in that term. Yes, I can forgive you, and we can be forgiven, but I don't like you. That was so funny when you said that. Listen, I'll forgive you, but I don't have to be around you, and you don't need to approach me anymore. And that's not throwing a tantrum and being ugly. That is just setting a firm boundary, is what that was. And people get really caught off guard when you're very resolute and confident in saying it that way. And it's worked well for me when it happened. So I don't need this person in my life. Don't want this person in my life.
That's
but
right.
I don't ruminate and think about it and rehash. It's like that happened. But you ain't bothered me again. So
So you can have peace of mind and have forgiven that person.
That's right.
And still not like them and not want them in your life, because they are toxic as hell.
That's right. You don't need to keep them on your Christmas card list. Just take them off.
And I know that one of the things I that person came at you with was, it wasn't Christian enough of you.
I needed to be more like God. That's right. Which was the biggest joke of all. That was just the most, I just like, are you stinking kidding me? But yes, I was told that.
Stuff people come up with. And I know, Joanne, you had a similar situation. Yours was, where you had to deal with a forgiveness issue.
In the family. So that was somebody that I truly couldn't avoid. But guess what? I have avoided that situation because I've allowed myself to stop feeling guilty about, I don't go to their events anymore. I'm the one everybody's looking at weird. Why didn't she show up? Who cares? You wronged me. I'm done with it. And, I don't have to feel warm and fuzzy about you. And I always was so hung up on that.
Me too.
Forgiveness had to look like, we still do Christmas together.
We
still, we still go to, events or whatever. And that was more that everybody else in the family wanted that to be mended. But sometimes things aren't meant in the cards to be mended the way everybody else wants them to look. And that went on for years, and I had such guilt because I thought, even if I forgive her, nobody else knows I forgave her because I'm not coming to events anymore. That stuck with me so bad
Right.
that I was ruminating about it. Well, now, ever since the Mindset Marathon, and I mean, like, my head almost blew off when you said the real definition of forgiveness and how it didn't have to look warm and fuzzy. And I was like, in that second, I was like, okay, forgive her. It's over. I mean, I felt like an elephant jumped off my chest and it
Me
was
too.
gone. It was just gone. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to go hug her at a holiday. I don't have to show up and open presents. I don't have to put that fake facade on. It's over. And it felt so good.
And you don't, you know, it, like, for me, it just means that, like, with my mom, I mean, there's certainly other people that I certainly don't wish her any harm. I don't want anything
No.
to happen to her.
No.
I'm not sitting around ruminating about all the bad stuff she's done. I'm just done with it. It's like, I
Yeah.
get it. I forgive you. You're a flawed person. You've got some issues. I wish the best for you. I don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
So that is, you know, even for, you know, and also I will say this too. You know, I've been pretty open about the person who stalked me for 2 years. I was one of the first women in Ohio to have a civil protection order. And I happen to know for a fact that that person has not changed, because he contacted my daughter not that long ago, and it was not a good situation. And here's what I say about that. I don't forgive him. And you know what? No one has to tell me. No one can tell me to forgive him. Nobody can tell me that it'll be better if I forgive him, or that, or whatever. I'm just saying, I know I can move on with my life.
Yeah.
But he's still a jackass. He's still a bad person. And I'm not going to extend that. I don't, you know, I wish the best for you. I don't wish the best for him. And I'm actually okay with that. So my point is that, you know, you don't let anyone decide this for you.
Right.
That's right. And I will say this too, because this was a pivotal moment for me. My dad died almost 2 years ago. It's coming up on his 2-year anniversary. And, you know, he had caused a lot of heartache in my family with my mother and things that had gone on. And she had told me a little bit too much about things that had gone on. And so I had harbored some things with him, and he had harbored some things with me. But as he was dying, I was given that opportunity to talk with him, and he was very receptive to that. And I got the closure that I needed. But as I talked to you about it, and you said, but it's really true. I would have been fine either way, because I had already dealt with some things. That was just an added bonus that I got to have that. And I'm very appreciative of that. And it's a tender memory that I'll always carry with me. My mother was not able to get that because he could not extend that with her. And that's just a wound for her. And it's hard for her to deal with. And it has just caused her a lot of pain, you know, in her 81 years, and affected her physically. But I was able to get it, and I was receptive to it. And that's what I would say to people, that maybe something will happen one day, and maybe hearts will change. But if it's not, then it doesn't. But be okay with it either way. Right.
And I think I've accepted. A big part of the problem is that we don't accept things the way they are.
That's right.
We want things to be a certain way.
We do.
I accept that, you know, he is not a good person. And I just, you know, I'm not trying to make him into something that he's not.
No, you're not.
I don't think about it every day. I don't punish myself by doing that.
Right. That's right. And listen, nobody was more surprised than me that my dad was like this. I mean, you could have knocked me down that he was open to this, but facing death, and that's what happened. Yeah.
That's right. You never know.
Never know.
But I think that it's okay to feel a full spectrum of emotions, because that's the other thing that is the problem, is women are not allowed to be angry. You know, that's why it's so great when we forgive and we forget and we hug it out. Like, it's okay if you're angry. Now, I will say, you know, anger is a place I visit. I live in gratitude land, but sometimes I go and visit anger and have a little stay.
Right.
And that's
but
okay.
then you come on back. You close the door and you come on back. That's right.
It's okay. And
It is
it's
okay.
healthy. It's
It's
healthy.
healthy. I
Yeah.
agree.
So if you're angry right now, I give you permission to be angry. But but you realize you can't live in that state, or you
Yes.
become an angry person.
That's right. And don't live in that state and go poison yourself with all of these foods and die a slow death, because that's what it is. These foods can heal you, you know, with all we're talking about with the gut and the mental issues and all that, or they can slowly poison you. And that's what I was doing. I was slowly poisoning myself.
Right.
Mhm.
So we're getting a lot of amens.
That's right.
Gina says, this is a great topic today. I've started setting boundaries and I feel so much better and
Yeah.
not feeling guilty about setting boundaries.
Gina's setting some major boundaries and I love it.
Set them.
And we need to. And,
Yes.
and absolutely, I posted about this yesterday. Stop apologizing for your boundaries.
Yeah.
Right.
You
Stop
don't ever need to say,
apologizing for being yourself.
That's right. And let your no be a no, period. End of
right.
sentence.
You don't have to start your sentence with, I'm sorry, but.
Yeah.
And explain it away.
No.
No, period.
And when you do that, you can move up. This is what happens naturally, is you
Yes.
move up to a place of self-esteem
Yep.
where you feel confident in yourself. You realize that you are a complete unit unto yourself, that you've got
Mhm.
this, that you have the respect of other people. Like you're saying, LT, all of a sudden they're like, all right, mom's got your back here.
Yeah, can't come at mom no more. Right.
And you are okay. Okay, two things. You are making authentic connections because you're not connecting with people because you need something from them, or vice versa, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
And you feel comfortable being your individual self.
Yep.
Mhm.
You feel comfortable being authentic. You don't have to put this air on for anybody else. Emily says, I've gotten much better with food boundaries. Next up, work boundaries.
Work. Yep.
So that's another, yeah. So all areas of our life, there's no areas setting boundaries with yourself, your family, your friends, your work, your church, your whoever
Your
it is,
neighbors. Yep.
your neighbors. Yeah. But when you do that, that's when you can move up to this next level where you feel
Mm-hmm.
the freedom to be your authentic, true self.
And
Because
that's what
you
we're
feel
talking about when
comfortable
we
with
say
it.
freedom. Freedom and monkey
Yep.
off the back. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
Yep.
And that's where, so that's why if you guys are following along, you can't jump
Mm-mm.
from this place all the way up because you need to do these steps. You
Yes.
cannot, you can't achieve one without the other. They build on one another. That's why they call it a developmental hierarchy. It's
Mhm.
developing as you go. So then once you get that feeling, which is an amazing feeling of, I am feeling myself. I feel good. I like myself because here's what actually happens is so many women come into my world and they're in a place of self-loathing.
Yes.
You cannot be in a place of self-loathing and get here. I promise you that right now.
No.
You cannot
Mm-mm.
do it. It's not
Mm-mm.
possible because you've already decided you're not worth it. You will sabotage yourself and you will move right back down to the bottom.
That's
And
right.
this is the yo-yo,
Yeah.
yo-yo
I
diet.
had a real clear example of that. I was at the lake by myself for a few days last week before I was joined, and I started really thinking about, if I were by myself in my former life, I would have been going to town at the grocery store or buying the junk food because it would have been a perfect storm of eating and getting what I want and nobody seeing it and not having to hide wrappers and all that kind of thing. And here I was showing up for myself every day through my exercise, my journaling, doing my mindset work, getting the proper food, and nobody was watching me. And I thought, this is so wonderful that I do this for myself.
You're
Yes.
doing
It really
for
is.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. And that is the key, is when you decide you are worth it by going through all these steps,
Mhm.
then you realize that you're doing it just for you.
Yeah.
And you're
Whether
doing it in
anybody
those
is
moments
watching
that
you-
you're alone. I
Yeah.
mean, where nobody's watching, you really, that's when you know you're doing it for yourself.
Right.
Mhm.
So when people ask us, and I know all three of us have gotten this question, is, are you afraid you're going to go back? No, because
No.
we know now that we're doing it for ourselves. This isn't,
Mhm.
it's part of who we are now.
Yeah.
It's who we are, and we're managing it today. We're looking at today. We're not borrowing trouble. And, you know, that's why I say you're not going, when you strut, you stumble. We manage it very well.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Right.
Mhm.
So, but that's what gets you to this top place where we all want to be, which
Mhm.
is they're calling it here self-actualization, which is morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience your purpose, your meaning, and your inner potential.
Mhm.
So, and just to touch on this, basically what they're saying here about morality is like, obviously it's hard to make moral choices if you are down here at the bottom or you don't feel
Mhm.
safe, right? So that's how you get to you can have true morality, you know, do the right thing, right? When you feel safe and you feel healthy and you're not on the crazy train and you have authentic connections, you feel good about yourself, that allows you to just think clearly and act in a way that is in alignment with what you think, instead of
Yep.
I think this, but my actions are way over here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now I want to recognize too that this is working on yourself is a lifelong process.
Yes.
So right now, Joanne and LT and I are going to talk about being up here at the top, but I say that with a sense of humility that you're always working on it. It's not
Mhm.
like, oh, well, we've reached the pinnacle, so listen to what we have to say. This is our lifelong journey. You're always up here still working on it. You're always figuring things out about yourself. But
Always.
what has your experience been now that you have gone through these steps and you are experiencing this big purple pinnacle? What does it feel like? How is your life different?
It feels effortless at this point. Whereas before, I felt like I was a big truck with my tires in the mud, spinning and spinning and spinning, and I couldn't get anywhere. Now it's just, I often use the word unfold. And I use that with some of my clients. I can't wait to see how your journey unfolds, because if you're doing it the right way, it's going to unfold. It's not going to be effort. At a certain point, it's going to unfold the way it's meant to unfold, because you're being your most authentic self. And it feels so hopeful. Whereas before I was like, I'll never get there. I'll never do this. I'll never have a career. I'll never, just because you doubted yourself so much, it just really feels effortless at this point. And it
Mhm.
feels good finally. And it
Mhm.
feels right. And it feels authentic. And I think that's where your confidence comes from, because you're not trying to be something you're not anymore. You're just letting it unfold, and it's all happening at the same time. So it's real, and it
Right.
just feels really good and really, authentic.
That's my word. I use that word a lot. Authentic. It
Mhm.
feels like a quiet confidence
Yeah.
because there's no comparison with somebody else. And I lived in comparison world. Why can't I be? What's wrong with me? I wish I had, fill in the blank. It didn't matter. I mean, I wanted that. And so now it's a quiet confidence as and it's such a freedom to not have to compare myself. I feel like that I'm enough as I am. I'm valuable. I was always valuable and worthy, but now I know it. I know it. And also what it feels like is that when somebody else gets it, it feels wonderful to cheer for them, because I really want to straighten your crown. And when your crown, I'm straightening your crown, then this lady over here is watching me straighten your crown. And I love that, paying it forward like that. And it feels very right to do.
I think that's why so many women in our group refer to it as a family, because
Yeah.
there is no competition. We are truly there to lift one another up and to see each person reach their own potential, whatever that looks like for them.
All of us get so excited when we see it. There is a genuine excitement that the three of us right here share, plus April. We love it.
Yeah. And everyone in the group, it's not just us, like
Yes.
everyone in the group
You're
is
right.
like, you go,
Yes.
girl. Like, they're so excited for everyone, because we've all been there. We've all seen what it's like to be at this bottom rung. So
Yeah.
when we see people moving up, you're like, yes, I want this for you. And I think that I'm 51. So are you, LT, right? And then
Yep.
Joanne, you're going to be 49. Is that what you said?
48.
48. So a lot of people, when they women get to our age, they start to feel really scared. They're scared of getting older, even when they before that, even when they get to be 40 or earlier. And I think that is because they think so much of my life has passed and I'm not at my potential. I'm not doing what I thought I would be doing. I don't feel the way I thought I would feel. This is not the way that I wanted my life to go. And they're scared that they're going to get to the end of their life and they're still going to feel that way. And I think what we're seeing in our group, this whole, 50 is the new 30 type of vibe, is really just because not only are we feeling physically amazing, but because you start to when you know yourself and you feel good about yourself, you start to see your own gifts and you start to realize what your purpose is. It just helps you to just come into your own in a way that you're not scared about getting older, and you feel okay about it because you feel so excited about your life.
Absolutely.
So I hope that women who are watching this realize that, because we do a lot of crazy things to lose the weight. And I really think of like Oprah when she did the OptiFast and she lost all the weight and she came out, with
Pulling her wagon.
with the jeans on that she had wanted to wear, and then she gained all the weight back right away.
Yeah,
it's because she didn't do any of this, right? At that time, all she did was she yo-yoed and she came right back down. The reason that we feel confident that we're not in that space anymore is because we've done the steps. And that's what the Plant Power Revolution is about. It is taking you through these steps, starting with, now you don't have to go through all these steps and then the weight comes off. You actually start here. The weight starts coming off, and then we take you through these steps so that when you lose the weight, you keep it off. Because the weight was never the problem. The weight was a symptom.
Yep, absolutely.
Of the problem. So Kayla says, I needed this today. I'm so glad that I know we're reaching some of you. This is, our, mission. And we are so grateful for everyone that comes into our path, whether it's here in the big group where, through the Inner Strength Empowerment Hour, and in the posts that we make, or it's more on a personal level, that we do work on a very personal level with our clients, because seeing people's lives change, seeing women's lives change, I mean, that is just, it's our purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that feels amazing for us, to watch each of you move up that hierarchy and that light bulb go off that like, I am an amazing person and I am reaching my full potential. I mean, that's an amazing thing to behold.
And you can see it. I have a few clients right now who are hitting that point. And I mean, I can physically see it on their face. And when we talk about it being like effortless, and you can almost just see that whole ease about their voice, their language, their whole way they carry themselves, because we do Zoom calls and stuff. So we see people, I see people change. You can see the physical change in their emotional state. And once I see that, I'm like, you're there.
There we go.
You're there. You ain't going back now. I don't have to worry about you at this point because I know you're there.
That's right.
So, and it's such a great feeling to know that, they're sailing on and they're going to do this.
Right. And the cool thing is we see how they're impacting people in their lives.
And it's funny because some of them don't even recognize, like you talk about, it's kind of scary to have this new self. I've had one person who's like, who am I? She's like, something came out of my mouth the other day about mindset to one of my friends. She's like, who the heck am I right now? I don't even recognize myself, but she liked it because now she had that quiet confidence and that she was able in that moment that her friend needed help she was able to pass on that wisdom to her and coming from an authentic place. So I'm sure the
Yeah.
friend receiving it actually received it because it was authentic coming from her. And
Well, I
you know,
had-
it's a revolution.
And I think I've shared this before, but I said something, and my husband said, "Well, the real LT, please stand up." And I said, "I'm standing right in front of you," and he goes, "And I'm loving it." I mean, that was a
Yeah.
great day. I loved that day.
Yeah. And you said your kids just said like they were talking to somebody, they were talking about someone and they were like,
One
you
of their
know,
little coworkers who's
yeah,
has a serious weight problem, and I just overheard them. They weren't addressing me. They were talking loud in this open-ended house over here we got over here, and they said, "We need to get mom to help her." And he's like, "Yeah, we need to get mom to help her." And I thought that was so great. They recognize that mom is different, and mom really does want to help people in this arena.
well, and I, you know, as much as I mean, I really feel like this is my life's work. But when you hear one of your children say, like my son said to me, you know, Mom, I just want you to know that I really admire the way you handle things. I was like,
Mhm. I
That was like,
know.
you know, if he never said
best.
anything else nice to me, and he's a teenager, so he might not.
I know.
Mhm.
You want to get
that-
that monogrammed on a pillow. I know. You just
Right.
want to see it. I know.
Can I get that on tape? Like I just, that was like, oh my God, you know.
Right.
And Kayla says, I've seen this in April Conklin, and that's why I'm here. It's amazing. So
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
started working with April, our other coach.
Yes.
And because of this, because you see the change in someone and they
Sure.
just start spouting this wisdom. We had someone
Mhm.
else who, in the group who was a police officer,
Yeah.
and she said that around now all of her coworkers are like, well, you need to go talk to her because she knows. Yeah, you know, she's become like
Right.
the Yoda of her station.
Yeah.
And so it really is. It's so fun for us all to see that, how it's
Yes.
turning out in other people's lives. And so
Yeah.
we're here for it. We're here for you.
Yep.
If this is something that you want in your own life, please contact me or Joanne or LT or April. We would all be happy to talk to you about the program and get you on board. There's no time like the present. That's for sure. So thank you all so much for joining us today. If you're watching the replay, feel free to comment because we always go back and look at the comments as well. And we hope you have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next week on the Inner Strength Empowerment Hour.
Bye, guys.
Bye.